Yo, yeah, finally here. Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Truth Talk episode 4. And yeah, so title today, I want to have a little bit of a chat while we've got this international break. Hopefully, I think today's the last day. I want to go into a little bit on the subject of, have these Manchester United managers in the past and current present, have they actually been backed? Because universally, the consensus is that basically we've got that much of an inept board that all of these managers have somewhat failed because of the board and not really to do with themselves. So I want to break this down a little bit. So I'm going to go through each manager one by one, because what I'm finding, and this is why it's such an interesting discussion, is we have got so many football pundits that clearly were brilliant footballers, but their knowledge of football isn't what it should be and what we expect. So what they do is they distort a lot of people's opinions. When what I've been finding is on YouTube, there's so many different channels where I'm getting a lot of my good information from. I'm not even going to lie. I've already got my own knowledge, but like good fan opinion, proper fan opinion, it seems a lot more important than some of these ex legends. Some of these are some of my favorite players of all time, but when I sometimes listen to these guys, I listen to what they actually say and the reasons behind it. I think that they're just, a lot of the time, they hide behind their record as football players. A lot of these guys were failed managers, so I think that they have a bias towards a manager, and they would have had some form of dispute with a chairman, and I think that they would rather go at a player rather than the manager a lot of the time. So I'm here to give like a little bit of I want to break things down a little bit. I want to know what you guys think. So when it comes to like football management, when it comes to Manchester United, and ever since Sir Alex Ferguson has retired, like I said earlier, the consensus is that like literally these managers they haven't been given a fair shake whatsoever. They've been, Ed Woodward gets them, gives them only a little bit of money, and then all of a sudden it just implodes, and then we move on to the next one. I'm going to explain exactly why. For me, I've given it as a question, but for me, it's the opposite. There's a little bit of truth, but most of it is literally the opposite. So we'll start right at the beginning. So we're looking at someone like David Moyes. So we'll go through exactly who he brought, and was he backed or was he not. So David Moyes. So the transfer window came. The first signing that we was chasing was Cristiano Ronaldo. Then it was Gareth Bale, who already had his heart set on Real Madrid. Cristiano Ronaldo may well have come back to Manchester United, but as we know, Sir Alex Ferguson retired. So then we went after Fabregas, and Fabregas decided to choose Chelsea. Whether that was something to do, whether it was something to do with David Moyes, I'm not entirely sure. But obviously, we was after him. Thiago, as we've heard, David Moyes turned down because he didn't know enough about him. And then the whole Fellaini thing. So let's just start with that signing. So Fellaini. So for me, Fellaini is one of those things where people said it was a panic buy in the end, because he had a clause right at the start of the transfer window, and then right at the end we had to pay more because we waited so long. Now, if we're blaming Ed Woodward for that, then that just means that the manager has literally zero power. Because if you buy someone like Marouane Fellaini, you must literally have an idea of how you want to play this your team, because he has got a specific style. So it's not just somebody that you just walk across and go, okay, then we'll just get him then instead. You would have had to work out your literal tactics to get a player like this. So was that Ed Woodward or was that David Moyes? Was that the fact that we was after other players because maybe was thinking Marouane Fellaini? And I remember the conversations that people were having, the fact that we was actually going to get Fellaini. that it came across with a lot of negativity. So we ended up getting him, but that's after turning down Thiago, and that's spending a lot of the transfer window trying to like chase Gareth Bale. Was there a backup after Gareth Bale? And the unique circumstance with David Moyes taking over was that he took over champions. Now, granted, if you've seen some of my videos before, I don't think that we've had a great team since the 09 team. But at the end of the day, it still won the league the season before. So can we say that he wasn't backed that particular summer? Because this is where you'll hear of Gary Neville and so on and so forth. They'll start to discuss and say, well, he wasn't backed, he wasn't given a long enough time. So let's assess that. So he took over champions, people who've been there and done that. Wayne Rooney, I remember, was umming and ahhing if he was going to stay because of his falling out with Sir Alex Ferguson. Again, if he wanted to make decisive decisions, that was one to make, and his decision was to indulge Rooney and give him a bigger contract. So that in itself was a signing for David Moyes, just to keep Wayne Rooney. So we can't look at the fact that he wasn't backed, because Wayne Rooney wanted to leave, and then we ended up giving him 350k a week to keep him and give him a longer contract. Then in January, when David Moyes is struggling because he's not getting the best out of the players, has he done enough in the training? Were the players happy with him? Did he do enough to understand that Sir Alex Ferguson's left? The way that he brought in his own backroom staff, that's absolutely fine. But was that the right thing to do? And the fact that I forgot about one of the other signings, and that was Wilfried Zaha. It seemed like he just didn't want to give him. We see what he's doing at Crystal Palace. He just didn't give him a chance. So we got to again question that as well. So let's just question that. So he's took over a title-winning team. He's panic bought Fellaini, but it doesn't make sense if he's a panic buy, because Fellaini is a specific type player. Sir Alex Ferguson left him a Wilfried Zaha, raw talent, but we could see that the talent was there. So, and the fact that we was going to bid for Gareth Bale, where was the backup after Gareth Bale and Cristiano Ronaldo? It was like we was trying to shop at Harrods, but none of the items were available. So is that, again, is that the board's problem? Is that the Glazers' problem? And I don't like the Glazers or Woodward, but was that their problem, that we pursued those particular type players and there was no real backup? So who did David Moyes actually miss out on? The only player I think in that particular summer that missed out on was Fabregas, and he turned down Thiago. So then come January, so let's move on to David Moyes. So then comes January, and then Chelsea have a substitute who wasn't getting into the team at all, very good player. And we spent at the time quite a lot of money, 37 million, got him his private helicopter to come and pretty much save David Moyes and his job. So we spent 37 million then to bring in Juan Mata, and we carried on slipping down the league, and we was playing absolutely horrific football. Nothing was gelling, and everyone had to go, had enough, you could tell, of David Moyes. So my question to you after all of that is, was David Moyes backed? Or was we chasing players for him that wasn't going to happen? You know, we got turned down by one player, which can happen to anybody, but he turned down Thiago. We brought in Juan Mata. We brought in Fellaini, who didn't seem like any of the sort of a Manchester United player. So all this is going on, and then he got sacked, and then we're still questioning. And again, it goes back into those Sky Studios or elsewhere where we then question. We're looking at David Moyes didn't get given enough time. There's your champions from the season before, sitting in 7th place, 20-something crosses, I think it was, against Fulham. No goals. It was absolutely awful, dreadful. Teams beating us at home that hadn't beaten us at home for like 20 years, like Newcastle, Everton, I think it was as well. But we fall back to he wasn't sufficiently backed. Then David Moyes starts coming out with, well, I'd already sourced out Tony Cruz for the next season. If someone can tell me, what do you think David Moyes would have done with Tony Cruz? Like, no offense, but who do we think David Moyes actually is? He went to Sociedad after that, and he was terrible. He was worse than Gary Neville was at Valencia. He was absolutely awful. So for me, he was backed. Let's move on to candidate number 2, and that was LVG. I'll go into why Woodward was wrong in some of his appointments. That's something different. Let's just talk about if they've been backed. So LVG came with his forthright idea and players to get rid of. So these were Manchester United, I wouldn't say legends, but they were like part of successful teams where we won leagues. Danny Welbeck, straight out. Evans, straight out. Chicharito was like pretty much just on the peripheral. He got sold the second season, I think it was, but the first season you could see that he was trying to get him out of the team. That's fair enough. So what LVG had, and I haven't got anything written down, so off the top of my head, we got Schneiderlin for him, we got Schweinsteiger, we got Daley Blind. Who else in the first season? There was a few others that he got in the first season. Just trying to think off the top of my head. Midfield. Yes, Martial as well. Quite important. He got Ander Herrera. So there's quite a lot. He got Luke Shaw. So it's all coming back to me now. So we had all these players, and he brought them all in. Spent quite a bit of money. So we've got a left back for 30 million. I think Ander Herrera was around about 30 million. So money again was then spent. Then the following season, we bring in Di Maria, spent big money on him. Then we bring in Falcao. All in this time, just remember, we still got Wayne Rooney, we still got Robin Van Persie playing. I know that Van Persie getting a bit older and so on and so forth. But all I keep hearing was that LVG didn't get, like this LVG as well, they didn't get the players that he wanted. I hear pundits saying they turn on LVG a little bit more. I'm not sure if it's because he's Dutch or they just didn't like him, but all of a sudden you do hear a lot more negativity when it comes to LVG, maybe because he did sell a lot of the players like Welbeck, Cleverley, and so on and so forth. But again, another manager that was backed with millions. Yes, we didn't a lot of the time always get the first choice, but who does? Does everyone get their first choice? I want everyone to answer that. Does everyone get their first choice signing? And if they do get the first choice signing, how much are they paying for that first choice signing? You know, depending on who it is and depending on how big a name it is. Because LVG said it himself, he thought going to Manchester United is about to get any player that I want. And it really has never worked like that at Manchester United. In the 90s, Ronaldo from Brazil, was we able to get him? Zidane, players like this, was we able to get them? It's always been the way. We can get players in the Premier League, but some of the top brass in Europe isn't as easy. You got to think about the Premier League with how many superstars have we actually had in the Premier League that have been brought as superstars. I would say Thiago, that Liverpool have just brought. I'd say Paul Pogba at the time that we brought him. Zlatan was coming towards the end, but he was still a little bit of a superstar. I'd say Crespo, Shevchenko coming towards the end of his career. But superstars compared to what the Italian leagues and the Spanish leagues, when it comes to like the foreign superstars, we are way behind. So if someone can answer me how LVG wasn't backed, he was backed with the transfers out and he was backed with the transfers in. And he was for LVG, he likes younger players to listen to everything that he says and basically be robotic. So that's why you start to see McNair and Rashford coming through and stuff like that to look up to him because he was so diligent. Just remember Michael Carrick was still playing as well. We had a good squad. You know, with Di Maria and stuff like that. And if you don't get the best, Di Maria's still playing now. I know he's at PSG, but Di Maria's still playing now. He's still playing for Argentina. He's been absolutely fine. So, did LVG fail? He won an FA Cup. Got nowhere near in the league. We was always hit and miss. We looked better in the big games. But again, arrogant guy. And he failed on the pitch. I remember going to some of the game. I remember the game against Watford at home, and I think it was who scored the winner. Now was it? I think was it Troy Deeney? I can't even remember if it was Troy Deeney. I think it's what's his name. I think it was Igalo. who scored against us, to be fair. No, it wasn't. It was what's his name? Who played for Birmingham City up front, who barely scores, who's like literally a 5 goal a season striker. It will come back to me. I just remember seeing some of these games, and we used to just leave the ground, and it was just like, what on earth was that? We were just literally, it was just pass. But against the top teams, it worked, and some of the teams, we looked absolutely brilliant. I remember we went on a 3-game spin. I think we beat Spurs 3-0. I remember Wayne Rooney, bam, and then falling back because of that boxing fight that he had and all that sort of stuff. So it had its ups and it had its downs. But in reality, he failed. Do you know what I mean? This is Manchester United. You've been given the money. No, you can't get every single player that you wanted. I remember LVG saying that he wanted Neymar. That's not the case in this Premier League. That Neymar's come to the Premier League. So you can't then throw it at Manchester United because of your failings. And it was only half a failing because we won the FA Cup and fair play to him. But again, he failed. And again, he was backed, he was given money. And the fact that I look around and I think in all this time, no one else was spending this amount of money, apart from maybe Man City. Well, what was the difference? Man City got a better manager. Okay, so then we can get into the next one. And that's Jose, the guy who continues to say, second was the greatest achievement of my life, or that like crap. He finished second, just like last season. You could have just quite easily finished fourth. You know what I mean? Man City were that far ahead. It was just literally finishing in the top 4 to me. So you can say second because it's the position, but in general, it was the same as the other teams. It was no better. We went on a nice little run because we was in the Europa League, and that was about it. He won his Europa League. Well done. I'll never watch any of the highlights of the final again because it was awful. But at the end of the day, we won, and I was happy about that. And we won the community, like the Carling Cup or whatever it's called now. So yes, he won a little bit of silverware. But again, let's talk about, was Jose backed? And I remember his interview where he felt very positive, and he was talking about winning the league that first season. He said, we can always dream because, I never think about, this is Manchester United, I never think about finishing lower. So let's just break down his first season. So he got Eric Bailly. Obviously, he would have scouted him before. This isn't Manchester United. This is Jose Mourinho. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, so he had his target man. 89 million on Paul Pogba and Mkhitaryan. So he identified 4 positions that he felt like that we needed players for. So centre-back, he thought they would get that in Boye. He thought that we needed a target man. So that was literally, let's take the number 9 shirt off Martial, and he's going to be playing on and off with Rashford. Got Mkhitaryan for the right-hand side. And then who else did I say? I think it was a midfielder. I can't remember. Ibrahimovic, Mkhitaryan, Bailly, and I think there was one. Yeah, Paul Pogba. How can I forget Paul Pogba? Yeah, Paul Pogba. So we broke a record with signing Paul Pogba. Zlatan Ibrahimovic was on over 300k a week. Eric Bailly, promising young player from Villarreal. And then Mkhitaryan was a massive player for Borussia Dortmund, like huge. He was like their best player. And we failed again. Are we not understanding the pattern there? Manager got given money and we failed. So then we gave him another chance, which is fine. No problem. He's building his team. Then the next season, he gets into his sort of panic mode. Then we get Victor Lindelof. I think that was the season when we ended up getting Fred, was it? Yeah, so I think we got Fred. I think that season anyway. Oh yeah, it might not have been Fred that season. I think that was the season after. But then we still got Lukaku because Zlatan had that injury, 75 million. So again, of course, he hasn't been backed. I know that he tried to offload Martial, but I don't think it was that season. I don't think it was that particular season. His treatment of Sebastian Schweinsteiger was horrific. And like literally, that season, we started to fail. So this is the season where he finished second, and he said it was his greatest season. But in reality, We got knocked out to Sevilla in the Champions League, where he was then discrediting a lot of what Sir Alex Ferguson done. He brought tension within the squad, so he was falling out with players left, right, and centre, basically calling them out. And basically, then you started to hear the murmurings of not being back, not getting the players that he wanted. So then we move on to the third season syndrome with, it's not just with Manchester United, this is with Jose Mourinho. And then we bring in Dalot, and this is when we started to bring in Fred. Then we started to hunt around for defenders, because even though he's brought in Lindelof and Bailly, he's realised that he's made a mistake. He's realised that he's made a mistake. Then, this is just after the World Cup, teams were then giving us ridiculous prices. Was trying to get certain players as well, like rushing around trying to get players, and it just wasn't feasible to get certain players. And we can talk about Man City getting the players that they've got, but at the end of the day, when it's all about timing, when they went and got their fullbacks, those fullbacks were all available. If we went for those fullbacks, we would have got them as well. It just so happened that the players that a lot of these managers, these three managers that I've just talked about so far, the players that they want, when we're talking about Gareth Bale, Neymar, and we're talking about Boateng from Bayern Munich, we're talking about like big players for big clubs. It's not that easy just to go in and get those particular players, and this is what started to happen. So then, obviously, Jose started extremely moody. He's already falling out with Pogba. That debacle at Brighton that happened, where it was Lindelof and Bailly, where they was absolutely terrible. Actually, I think it was Lindelof was signed maybe that season. They played together. It was absolutely terrible. The intensity stopped. And yeah, there was big problems. And I've gone a little bit too far ahead on the timeline, because I forget from the season before the one with Sevilla, we signed Alexis Sanchez. The Man City were after Alexis Sanchez, and we blew him out of the water, got him playing the piano like Beethoven and Mozart, and the geezer failed, but we gave him 400 to 500k. So are we talking about that this manager again wasn't backed? Because this manager, if you want to back somebody like Jose Mourinho, you would have needed to sell a Rashford, you would have needed to sell a Martial to fund what he would have wanted to completely turn it around. There was Willian, there was what's his name, who plays for Inter Milan, who played for Bayern Munich last season, Perisic. Those were the sort of players that he was after. So if those were the sort of players that he was after, then yes, there's certain things from Manchester United that you don't get this particular type of manager. That's the only failing there. But talking about not being backed is way off. There's, again, a list of mistakes that have been made. 2 £30 million defenders, you expect better. You expect better. And he couldn't get the best out of them. He's saying that Fred was the only option or whatever. He didn't even try to work with Fred. He didn't try to work with Schweinsteiger at the time. He did seem old. Schweinsteiger seemed old. It seemed like his legs were going, but I felt like they had another season in him. I thought that he was treated horrifically. There was a lot of talk about him, like that players weren't happy that he was going to Germany, that he's going around the world while he's injured to watch his missus play tennis or whatever. But a lot wasn't handled properly. So again, I'm looking at the manager and I'm thinking, you're making the mistakes as well. You're making the mistakes as well. So then, if he's making the mistakes as well, then we can move on to number 4, and that's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So let's have a little think of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So again, one thing I can say about Solskjaer is that he doesn't complain about not being backed. His ex-teammates do that for him because it's a defense mechanism to obviously defend him. But let's talk about Ole. So this is somebody who has never had a big club, never managed a big club. The club that he managed in the Premier League got relegated, and he had a few game winning streak. We got outplayed by PSG, but we went through, and then all of a sudden we was all excited. We give him the job. So come the summer, what happens that summer? We spend 130 million on a centre back and a right back. So they're breaking records. So we're talking about centre back that cost £80 million. So to say that he's not been backed, he doesn't even believe that himself. He doesn't even believe that himself. And then we can go into this year, and once again, we're talking about a pandemic's going on, and again, the propaganda that's going on in, say, Sky Sports or anywhere else. You can quite easily see that they're talking about the not being backed again and not getting this sort of player. Well, I ask them to look around. Chelsea haven't been spending what Manchester United have been spending in the last 7 to 8 years. In recent times, they haven't been spending the same, and then they've still got the money from Hazard, and they've had a transfer ban. So they were the only team in Europe that was spending that amount of money. People are acting like that. We only got Cavani. We still spent 40 million on Van der Beek, who I think still will prove to be a good signing. Then we've still got Cavani. We've signed 30 million, apparent wonder kid that we're supposed to get excited about, which is fine. Blair Street for 10 million as well. You know, we've had some outgoings as well. And who else did we sign? I'm just trying to. We brought in Henderson back as well. So for me, and oh yeah, Bruno Fernandes in January. So when we discuss if these managers have been backed, are we saying that this 1 billion that has been spent since 2014, these managers haven't been backed? Or can we all at least agree that they've all literally failed? If Ole Gunnar Solskjaer gets sacked, which he should have done ages ago, it's literally because he's failed. He's broken the transfer window. He's been trusted with 80 million on a defender, and that's the quality of defender that he brought in. And you know that that's his signing. This isn't Manchester United because he made him his captain straight away. So all in all, let's have a little bit of a look at what they do say in the media. Like Gary Neville will say, you know, we need to get someone who's fit for purpose to run Manchester United, and I tend to agree with that. Like, so when we're talking about, you know, director of football or someone to help with the negotiation, yes, because I do think that we are being taken for the ride. But what I said at the beginning, what I wanted to address at the end is our biggest failing is employing the wrong managers, and I'll explain why. So David Moyes wasn't big enough, wasn't ready for the Manchester United job in 2014. Then we went for somebody who is now a retired manager for a reason. So he's obviously halfway there. So for his style to be implemented with these Manchester United modern players, he was never going to work. And then you go to a born winner, but he's a born winner, not with young players trying to bring them through. So for Marcus Rashford, for Martial, he was never going to get the best out of him. And then we've moved on to a club, we say legend because of the gold or whatever, the super sub. So now we've literally moved on to that, and we always take one step forward and a couple of steps back. That's exactly what the pattern is. So each manager, you know, Jose got sacked by Chelsea. He's on his way down. Yes, he's got a fully developed team at Spurs, so it looks like he's improving because he's got a couple of players and he can defend for his life. He's got a couple of players in Son and Kane who will cause damage, who are established. And Manchester United, we want to see Rashford, we want to see Martial if it was completely up to Jose, which is fine. That's the manager's prerogative. It was just the wrong call. And then we've got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So there can actually be questions, and there can actually be a thought that maybe it's down to the manager. So when I've been talking about getting Pochettino, out of all the managers, he fits and ticks every box. We're talking about a modern manager who gets on with the board. He gets on with the staff. He plays a good brand of football. He's got to Champions League final. He got Spurs second. When this is Spurs, they don't really finish second ever. He consistently qualified for Champions League, and we still got people to say Ole hasn't been backed. We didn't get to spend 120 million on Sancho. We didn't get Grealish or whatever during a pandemic, even though no one else is spending any money. So I want to know what everyone thinks on this, because it's quite interesting. Because I think for the future of Manchester United, getting a Poch right now or someone modern right now is the thing that's going to turn things around. This is the thing that's going to take us on to the next level. And the longer that we prolong it, the reason why that there's such a divide with the fan base is literally down to a lot of legends. You know, Rio came out recently and said, back Ole, he's done well, blah, 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 blah. But that's the next teammate. You can't really take that. You have to take it with a pinch of salt. Roy Keane's normally damning with managers and stuff like that, or players mainly. And even he said something, but even he has to stay back because they're ex-teammates. You can't take these guys seriously, and that's why the fan base is so divided. So I listened to a few of the channels, and you'll have some defending. Ole, I was listening to one earlier, and they were saying literally, look what Ole's done. He's changed this player. He got Greenwood playing well. He got Martial. He's got Rashford playing. And I'm like, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was a striker. He'll put confidence into strikers' heads because he remembers what it's like to be a striker. He's brought through Mason Greenwood, but at the end of the day, any manager that doesn't see that sort of talent, I saw it as soon as I saw him playing for the younger 18s. This guy's been ridiculous for absolutely years in the younger ages. So we're talking about improvements of players. Who's actually been improved? I heard someone say something about Fred. Fred's playing at the level where just before he signed for us, like Brazil were looking to, he would have been playing for Brazil. I think him and what's his name, who plays for Lazio, who used to play for us, who's on loan. His name's just going up, Pereira, absolute nightmare player. But they got picked for the first squad for Brazil, I think, just as Fred was being brought. So Fred's nowhere near the Brazil squad. Douglas Luiz is starting most games for Brazil. So has he really improved him? I'd say no. Has he improved Bruno Fernandes? No, he's been doing those numbers for a while. Is Harry Maguire improved? No, he's got worse. I heard someone say Luke Shaw's improved. Has he? He looks better in a back three, but as a fullback, he just looks bang average. Has Wan-Bissaka improved? No. Has his attacking improved? No. So I think that there needs to be some sort of accountability from all these managers. You're never going to get it from egotistical managers like Jose or LVG. Their ego's too high, and Jose's been able to hide behind this Spurs situation now where he's doing well, but they had an established settled front line anyway, and they were a good team either way. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I want to know what you guys think with this because it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting when I read and when I see people saying that none of the managers have been backed and Ed Woodward out and blah blah blah. The one thing that they can't do is it seems like they struggle with negotiations and deals, so we always have to pay extra. But at the end of the day, we are paying because these managers are making a lot of these players worse. So we're selling players for cheap and we're having to buying the players expensively. And we're also going after the most expensive type of players. Like, why aren't we, like everyone's saying that Joe's been back this season. How much has he actually spent? Everyone's saying Liverpool get backed. How much have they spent? When they bought Van Dijk, what did they have to do? They sold their best player at the time, Coutinho. So who's actually spending big? Chelsea, they had a transfer ban. They sold their best player. They're rebuilding. You know, they're doing the rebuild that we should have done after 2009 when we sold Ronaldo. At the end of the day, that's where the mistakes have been made, that we didn't improve from there. That's something to moan about. Man City, have they been spending big? Not really. Did they spend big in the summer? Not really. So I think that this is a little bit of a hoax. I think that this is a little bit of a let's defend, let's just go at the board and let's go at the Ed Woodward because it's very easy to do that. Because at the end of the day, we would want that change of ownership and such and such. But at the end of the day, just because we're not throwing 120 million at Sancho straight away, just because Dortmund tell us to during the pandemic, it doesn't mean that these managers haven't been backed by a billion. And ultimately, they've all failed. They've all failed. 3 semi-finals last season, Ole. There's no excuse for not getting to one final. He's failed, and he continues to fail. So yeah, Everton, he's got himself out of a rut, and will probably lose against Albion, or probably get a draw, and then we'll be talking about, oh, does he need to go? And then he'll win the next game. it's just going to be continuous. So yeah, guys, I want to know what you guys think. Yeah, do you think literally that it is the manager? It is the manager's fault. Do you agree with me? It is the manager's fault. A lot of them have failed, even though they haven't got all the players that they wanted, but they have predominantly failed. Or are you just listening to, you know, a lot of these club legends and other media people who just literally say they haven't been backed? You know, they wanted Sancho, they wanted the balance in the team. Jose wanted, you know, he wanted Perisic and stuff like that, and it just wasn't backed. I want to know what you guys think, because it is quite interesting. And I'm on to the next one, guys. I'll catch you guys later. See you later.